Um, Welcome to Sig Influence TV. I'm Nick Ronald, and I'm very excited to be chatting to Chad Miller today. So, welcome, Chad.
Thanks.
Chad, yes, you are the author of horror books. Is horror the genre you describe your books?
Broadly, yes. It is part of the horror genre. But more specifically, if you niche down the genre, it's more dark historical mysteries. So think Edgar Allan Poe meets Bram Stoker. So something historical with a mystery and with a horror element to it.
And how long have you been writing? When did you start?
I first picked up the proverbial pen about 25 years ago,
Wow.
the tail end of my college years. My friend DK, he was a student in creative writing, and I read one of his stories, and I loved the story. I was super impressed. So I decided to try one of my own, and the first short story I wrote, it was awful. I mean, I read it, and it was so bad.
Sure.
But that's how you start. Most people don't start with their first tale or story as something that's breathtaking or great. But it started me honing my craft. I never stopped since. Even so, I mean, I didn't publish my first book, until the last couple of years. So most of the time, it was more as a hobby or honing my craft.
So, how many books have you written in total? So,
Right now, I have three on the market. I have The Confession, which is my bestseller yet, and that starts book one of the series that I'm working on. It tells a tale. It's like an alternate history of if you know a little bit of American history. Lizzie Borden, she was a supposed axe murderess back in the 1800s. So it doesn't tell her tale, but it takes a spin on her tale. I also have a book called Prisoner of Despair, they all evolve in the same universe or exist in the same universe. It's about 3 years later than The Confession. So it takes on some of the similar characters, similar themes. And then I also have a book called Cerberus, which is doesn't follow along the same timeline, or it follows on the same timeline or same universe, but it doesn't pick up on the story, but still exists within the same universe. And that's a weird, very weird niche genre. It's a Western horror with Greek mythological elements in it as well. So it's definitely a mashing of genres. It's a fun book, but it's a little wild.
how do you get your ideas for your stories? How do you go about it?
I mean, I'm a fan. First and foremost, I'm a fan. So I'm a fan of literature. I mean, always have a book on me. And I mean, I wish I had more time. I would read a lot more. But even though it takes me forever to read a book, I'm always have a book on me. And I love movies. I love music. I love TV shows. I love going to the museum and seeing art. So I take all those elements, all those inspirations that are around me, and I take them in, and maybe like take a little spin on something that I see. So I see one thing or read one excerpt from a book, and like, well, where would this go if I were writing it, if I were painting it? What would be my interpretation of it? And I'll take my own, put my own fingerprint on it. So not that necessarily I'm borrowing from other artists or authors. I'll be inspired by them and go in my own direction.
And although I guess your books aren't necessarily uh, realism, but do you get ideas from daily life? I think sometimes I think some authors and they take their characters based on someone. Do you sort of
Of course, yeah. I mean, I'll see. I mean, I work my paying job, my side gig, as I like
sure.
to call it. I'm a pharmacist, so I see a lot of different people, either people I work with or the clientele, and not that I use one person in particular, but I might take an element of someone. Maybe a weird tick that they have, or a weird part of the personality, something unique that they have, or just people in life. The book that I'm going to write, um, I haven't started it yet. I'll probably start in May. But I have a particular character in mind, just the way he looks. I was on a trip with my girlfriend in Iceland, and we were on this tour. We were snorkeling the glacial lake with the clearest water, in the world, which was amazing on its own right. But I remember a guy in our group that he was very peculiar looking, so I kind of made a mental note, and this is like 2, 3 years ago. Made a mental note of what he looked like and his mannerisms. I never talked to the guy. I didn't really interact with him, but he was very peculiar. So I'm using his image a little bit, in my next book. So I take, mental notes. My phone's always handy. So, if I see something, might write down a quick note. And, I might not use it for a story that I'm writing. I might use it for down the road or might never use it. But
Sure,
still, take little uh, hints from life,
sure.
and try to, sprinkle them in my book a little bit.
Love it. And look at your process for writing. So I guess part of the process is always collecting ideas and, like you say, mentally in your phone. But with the actual process, are you someone? Do you sort of plan the whole book ahead and do it in a very methodical way? And do you write a little bit every day, or what? How do you approach writing a book? What's your
I
process?
mean, in the author world, not to pigeonhole an author, but they usually fit in one of two categories. Either an outliner, and that's when you, like you said, you have all your points. So even each chapter is broken down, so you have your beginning, your ending, your chapters, sub chapters, and everything is spelled out, and you kind of fill in the blanks. Or a pantser, and that's someone who kind of, stream of consciousness, just kind of just maybe has an idea, but they don't know where they're going. Just throw it out on the page. I think I'm kind of in the middle. Because in life, there's nothing is an absolute. Not everything's black and white. So for me, I don't write it down necessarily. I don't have an outline, but I definitely know the beginning. I definitely know the end before I start writing, and I know the major plot points where I want to go to. But how do I get to those plot points? That I like to happen organically. The reason being, I don't like to box myself in. It makes it feel like school.
Sure,
When you write a report,
of
you have to
course.
outline it and do all that stuff. For me, it feels more like work that way, and it's more
Sure,
exciting to go on a journey. However, I don't want to go on an aimless journey.
sure.
I kind of want to know where I'm going.
Yeah.
But the route along the way to that endpoint is the fun part. And sometimes I get new characters, get new ideas. Sometimes the story kind of how I get there. I never even knew it, or until that stream of consciousness hit that page. So I'm kind of in the middle, and I think it's a good hybrid for me. It
I
kind of
suppose
works.
that is my next question. Do you find that you start writing a book and then as you develop it, you actually, you change the story as you go through the process. So,
I
you
don't
start off, you have, the story in your mind, but then it actually changes as you go along. As you write, you think, actually, yeah, I'm going to introduce,
I,
yeah,
I wouldn't say I changed the whole course.
sure.
So the end is always there. And I would say I would have, like, let's say I'm writing a 300-page book. I'll have definitely like six plot points along that way where I want to get to. So those usually don't change. And the reason being is, so I just finished my book. The book that I have coming out, it's coming out in about a little over a month. I
Okay.
finished the first draft in December.
All right.
And sure, like I go through the editing. The editing process is meticulous, and a whole thing on its own. It doesn't end there. Obviously, I reread it, and I have a professional editor and do all that. But a lot of people will jump into the next book. Of course, I have an ideas for my book, but a lot of people will just jump in,
Sure.
even though I'm not. The editing process might be done. I have the mental acuity and the time to start a new project. I don't just jump in because I work out those kinks. I work out, well, I know how I want to begin. I know how I want to end. And I have certain plot points, but some of them might not make sense. Some of them might have plot holes in it. So I'll keep on continuing, mull it over in my mind,
Sure.
over and over again, and really think about it before I actually put, pen to paper. So therefore, the once I start writing, and even though I don't know exactly where I'm going to get to that plot point, the plot points are pretty firm. They don't really change direction. But how I get there, I could have a certain idea before going into it. And once I put on pen and paper, it could swerve. I could take a sharp left turn before
Sure.
getting to, where I need to get, where I need to go.
So would just carry understanding, would do you sort of start when you are quite interested in the process of developing a story? Do you start with the end in mind almost and work backwards or
No, I definitely start with the beginning in
yeah.
mind.
Okay.
So I really know where I want to begin.
Sure.
Because if you're a reader, and this is
Yep.
me too,
Sure.
if you don't get, especially if someone's unknown, and humbly, I'm relatively unknown. I'm not Stephen King yet.
Sure.
Um, so unless and I have a few fans and few people who will get my book no matter what. But for the most part, if you don't know who I am, if you don't capture someone within the first, I would even say first chapter, within the first 2 to 3 pages, they're lost, they're gone. So I really hone in on how I begin the book. I want to capture the reader's interest. I want to capture my interest. If
Sure.
I'm not interested in where it's going, the book's not going to be great. It's going to be, like I said, more like work, more, I want it to be fun for
Sure.
me as well. So if I don't get that great beginning, then it's lost for me and the reader. But I definitely want to know the end as well. So yeah, when I begin the process in my mind, I don't necessarily work backwards because I want to make sure I hone in
Sure.
the beginning, but I don't want the ending to fall flat as well. So those are the two key points where I start first. I might have a couple plot points in mind, but it's really beginning and ending where I lock in first, and then I start, kind of filling in the blanks in between.
I guess so. Yeah, yeah. I think I mean, yeah, the hook. That. Yeah, reading in the first page, you've got to hook them in, keep their attention, and get them excited to read on. Relating to that, how important is like the book cover? Getting that design because I guess that's the first thing you
Huge,
often see, isn't it? Um,
huge. They say don't it's important not to judge a book by its
sure.
cover. But in the Amazon world, with all the thumbnails, that's BS.
Yeah.
And the cover is extremely important. I had my first book, Prisoner of Despair. That was the first book that I self-published. And it was hard to find. I didn't even know where to start. So, I got one of those, online,
Sure.
there's Fiverr, but there's a little bit more upscale version of Fiverr called Upwork. And they have, all these different services. Cover design's one of them. And I found a guy and I had an idea in mind and he
Sure.
did an admirable job. It was pretty good, but it wasn't great. If you see it in the thumbnail, it was too small. It wasn't
Sure.
readable. I didn't really think about the marketing side. I just thought about the concept, and the
Sure.
concept was great,
Yeah.
but it didn't relate to the marketing side of it. So in this process, I'm lucky enough to have a partner. My girlfriend, well, actually, my fiance now. She is more the business side. I do all the writing, and she helps me with the business side of it. And part of her main role is project management.
Okay.
And she has a couple connections, and she knows a couple artists. So we redesigned it with one of the artists that she knows, and it changed the sales of the books, changed the image of the cover, and it made it more marketable, and it looks better in the end run. And we found a new artist for this upcoming book, and actually, my girlfriend's in New York. We're texting each other. We just got one of the final proofs back, and I'm so excited. So yeah,
Sure.
finding an artist is key. I can't do it on my own. Uh, one of the big controversies in writing now or the Amazon world is AI. So
Yeah.
I'm not for AI covers. I'm old school. I love working with an artist and working with seeing that creative process and that the creative process between the two of us. My vision and letting the artist take my suggestions and run on with their own. So I find it rewarding, and AI has its role in certain aspects of this process, but artwork is not one of them.
Yeah, it's interesting that. I mean, yeah, yeah. AI is creeping into everything, and I think yeah, the book writing process no different to anything else. And it's interesting to hear your thoughts on that. Um, And I guess it's a wider thing, having whatever business you're in, whether writing a book or running another type of business, you want a team of people you can depend on and you can trust them and you know their expertise. And it sounds what you say, that's really important with if you've got someone who can design book covers know they've got expertise, you trust them, and you can work closely with them, then
Right. And
use them
you
moving
know,
forwards
and a
ongoing.
lot of times I'll switch artists, not because I didn't like their work in the past, but this book might have a different feeling. So
Sure.
the first couple artists I used, she did a great job with The Confession. She hit it out of the park, and with Prisoner of Despair. And with the next one, Cerberus, it was a completely different genre. Well, not a completely different genre, but went from just a dark historical mystery to a Western horror with Greek mythology. So it's a different theme, different style. So I went with a different artist because of that. And same thing for my next book, Loose Ends. So yeah, they're all human, but they being human, they all have their niches,
Sure.
their strengths and their weaknesses. So I like playing into different artist strengths when changing artists for a particular cover.
Love it. And with as a writer, do you mix with network with other writers or other creatives? I heard you say at the beginning, that you love watching films and reading books and absorbing ideas and stories on different mediums. But do you sort of mix with other writers?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm very active online, especially Facebook. For whatever reason, that's where I have my most success, building my platform.
Sure.
But even through that, I connect with different authors, not just as, on the business side of it, you're trying to, reach out to more readers or trying to get a bigger audience, but also interacting with authors and sharing our wins and coming up with ideas of strategies, seeing what works for them might work for me, business wise or even creatively. So one of my author friends, his name is JB Arnold. He kind of works in the same niche. He's more horror, but he's more contemporary. More
Okay.
historical. He's more contemporary. We, chat quite often. We follow each other, and I love seeing him when he releases the book and it shoots to the top of the chart. It's seeing his win is great. And I like reading his work and being inspired. Even though he writes differently than me, but just seeing him grow as an author, and I try to grow as an author as well. And there's other authors that follow as well. There's I'm having a mental block. Her name, I think Annie Manalo is her
Okay.
name. She writes almost truly inspired cases. So like a case of a haunted hotel. One of her books I read, which is a great book. So like I said, it's very different of how I
Sure.
write. And but that's great.
Yeah.
I don't want a carbon copy of me or necessarily be in competition with someone because
Sure.
in the end, independent writers should celebrate each other,
No, of
and we should
course.
help each other grow.
And on the so I guess on the sort of marketing side, or we ideally want to build, I guess any business, and writing books to an extent is like a business. We're trying to sell something we do and to an audience and build up a following. We ideally want those fans of our book, and to like our book so much they tell other people. Do you want to share perhaps a bit about, how are you, what you do you think, how important is it to sort of try and engage with your followers or potential readers of your book? And how do you
I
go
think it's
about
really,
this? I mean, you
really
mentioned
important.
Facebook, so yeah, tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, engagement comes in a couple different ways.
Sure,
I have my own, website and my own email list. So if someone responds to an email that I sent out, I always respond back, 100%.
sure.
It's really important. So because the people on your email list, I mean, they gave up some of their personal information. They gave up their email address. So that means they're either, really supportive of what you're doing, or you're real fans. That's where your base is. So for them, they're like my favorite child, I like to call. So yeah, any interaction I get through the newsletter, 100% I interact. As far as reviews, if someone leaves a Goodreads review or an Amazon review, good or bad, I read every single one, and sometimes I'm not obsessed over it, but I'll reread them, and I really take it to heart. Some I agree with, some I might not. I
Okay.
don't comment on them because I think it's poor taste to comment on
Yeah,
a Amazon review or good review, but I take it to heart.
sure.
And sometimes it affects my next writing. It's something I see something they like, it works. I, dig into that, or something doesn't work, and I see, a few people say the same thing, then I'll really take that to heart. So reviews, even though I don't engage, they are super important,
Sure.
both in building awareness for that author, but also helping that author grow.
Yeah,
And lastly, on social media.
sure.
Like I said, Facebook, I have a pretty large following. Not
Yeah,
that everyone in my following is, engaged in everything I
of
do,
course.
but I built that following slowly. And if I make a post and I have like 100 comments, I don't, respond to every single comment, but I read every single comment.
Yeah,
I usually like or heart it, and I do try to engage as much as I can.
sure.
I don't want to spend all day on social media.
Of course.
I spend every day on social media. I take, about 20, 30 minutes a day
Yeah,
just for social media, either posting, going through comments, or going through, my friends, my other
sure.
author friends,
Yeah,
posts as well, and commenting on them. Because, it's also important to be a fan as well. Not
yeah.
only for your readers, people comment on your posts, but to be a fan of other people's posts as well. So that's another way you network.
Yeah, I guess it's that like engagement is a two-way process, and if you can show,
Mhm.
yeah, you're responding where appropriate to people and following other people, it shows you're not just, yeah, you're not just posting. It's that whole open
Yeah,
to
it's a
other
two-way
people.
street. It's not a one-way street. It's not
Yeah,
like, here's my book, everyone look.
exactly.
It's much more about that, especially on social media. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe a third of my posts are about my book, and two-thirds are just about either writing,
yeah,
maybe, some interests, other than writing, like music or things that
yeah,
are going on in my life, yeah, it's not all about just the books, because then people get bored. I mean, most people just want to hear, an advertisement about your book. They want to see what's going on in your life. So, yeah, it's not just about promotion.
yeah. No, I love that because I was going. That's one of the questions I had was about how important is it for people, who read a book, they like it, they follow it to find out about the author. And I think you kind of answered that is that,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I mean, for the most part, they want to, because authors are people, and one of the most interesting part about reading someone's book
uh,
is seeing that fingerprint that they put on there,
yeah,
because it comes to them. So even though a book might be a sci-fi military book,
sure.
it came from one particular person, and what goes on in their life could help shape that book, and they
Sure.
want to be part of that process.
Yeah.
So, I share a lot of things. Like yesterday, I went to my hometown in Philly. We're not far from that. So took a snapped a picture of my favorite cheesesteak place. We're
Sure.
in Philly. But also about the writing process. If I have a particular struggle, I'll just post it. A particular question. I even share, like, here's my blurb that I'm going to come out with. Here's two sets of blurbs. Which ones
Sure.
do you like better? So,
Yeah.
to put or involve my followers in the process as well, is might be interesting to them as well.
Yeah.
So, usually those I get a lot of engagement. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I guess it's always good for someone who follows, whether it's a singer or a writer, if they feel a little bit closer, then it's obviously it's easier to follow someone if you feel that that it's not just on, yeah, abstract, but they're genuinely engaging. Like you say, if you share your struggles, ask questions, get feedback, then that's only
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to,
yeah.
necessarily follow a recluse that's, holed up in a room.
Sure,
You want to engage with, the author. It makes, us more
sure.
human.
So, looking ahead, I think you said you got 3 books out and you're working on your next one. Is that correct?
Yeah, three books out. I have The Confession,
Yep.
Prisoner of Despair, and Cerberus out now.
Right.
And my next book, that actually today, about an hour before the call, I finished my final read through
Wow.
of
Congratulations.
the manuscript. So the manuscript is like done.
Sure.
We're just pretty much waiting for the cover. She sent back the final proof, but she's tweaking it a little bit. And then I'll start the process of uploading to Amazon. But it's coming out. Loose Ends is coming out June 1st.
Okay.
And that is going to be book two of the series. So
Excellent.
Confessions book one,
Okay.
and Loose Ends is book two. So I'm excited.
Are they
You know,
sorry, don't mean to interrupt you. So do they book two follows on? Is that the way it works?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
it's a direct continuation
Sure.
of the confession. And the way I like to write my books, I don't like to have just like cliffhangers. Like this is what happens, but the story is not concluded.
Yeah.
Each book can almost read on its own.
I
So I
like that.
wanted
Yeah.
to develop loose ends. If you're picking that up for the first time and haven't read the confession, it can work as a standalone
I
book.
like that. Yeah. No, suits me.
But if you read the confession, loose ends will have so much more depth
Sure.
as well. And actually, so Prisoner of Despair was my first book that I ever written.
Yeah.
And I didn't think anything was going to go from there. I
Sure.
didn't think the story was going to go, but I love the characters so much that I wanted to start a universe. And that's when I wrote The Confession. But like I said, it's a couple of years prior to that. So I'm building up to Prisoner of Despair, and that is eventually going to be book four in the series.
Yeah. So that's another question for you a lot of writers when they have a success with a certain book, then they can build on complete different books, different stories, but the same characters. Build on featuring the
Right.
same characters, and is that something you look to do if you have success with these the first book and the second book to sort of potentially build a little series of the same characters. Is that
Yeah, I definitely want to
yeah,
build, and even though you know, every book is not going to be part of the
sure,
series.
of course,
So
makes sense.
my next book is the one that is being released, and the book after that. Since I want to complete the series, I want to have the readers have one, two, three,
Sure.
and four. The next book's going to be book three. But
Okay.
like I said, Cerberus is not part of that series. It's
No.
part of that whole universe, but it's not
Yeah.
part of the series. But I do plan to have all my books be part of the same universe.
Like it. I like it. Yeah.
So I even have, after I write this book, I know what my next book is going to be. Even though I haven't, started at all my next book, I know what the next book's going to be, and it's not going to be part of the series,
Sure.
but it's going to be flesh out the main theme
Yeah.
of the whole universe.
Sure.
So even though it's not a continuation of the story, it is definitely part of the universe, and definitely, fans of that series
Yeah.
will want to read that book because it describes a
Sure.
main foundation of the whole universe. So
I
it's
love that.
fun.
Yeah, that's it's great. I love that. I mean, that's definitely something that appeals to me. I love reading different books but the same characters, and yeah, for me that delving in straight away in the background. That's something that really appeals to me.
Yeah,
So
and another thing I love doing is leaving Easter eggs.
okay.
So
Oh no.
I
Do
love doing that. So
yeah.
there's a ton of Easter eggs I'm leaving to make those other books that might be outside the series but part of the
Sure.
universe so much
Nice.
more appealing. Like, I remember that from the
Yeah.
confession,
I
not from
like
this
it.
book.
I
Yeah,
like
so
it.
I love doing things like that.
That's cool. That's really cool. Just looking a bit, ahead. More books in the series planned. So you got, planning those further books, to follow on. What do you have any other ideal things for the next sort of 5 years? Would you want to, and just looking ahead as your vision, for your books, would you? I don't know, just interested to see whether, you would want to, some people say they want a film to be made of it, or they want to,
Oh well.
I don't know, did you have any sort of, long-term visions for the way
Well,
you
yeah, I
take
mean,
your direction?
in a couple parts. I mean, if a film was developed from one of my movies, that would be like a dream come true. So yeah,
Sure.
so filmmakers out there, I'm open. So
Okay.
yeah, that would be great. but as far as long-term goals, yes, I want to continue building the series. So the
Sure,
next, next by 2026, I'll have books one, two, three, and four.
sure.
And I also want to write books, like I said, within that same universe.
Hmm.
And some of them, the next one is going to be way back in time, back in the
Okay.
1600s.
Oh wow,
So
yeah.
it'll go back a couple hundred years. And then I want to go, maybe a contemporary book and one in the future. So they're going
Okay.
to be still with the same horror element to it,
Sure.
the same universe,
Yeah.
but expand on the genres itself.
Okay.
And because I have so much time on my hands, I'm
Sure.
being sarcastic. I have like no
Yeah.
time for anything.
Um,
I am developing The Confession,
yeah.
and that book I'm so proud of.
Yeah.
Um, I'm developing that into I'm writing a screenplay for it.
Oh
So,
wow, amazing.
because for my birthday present this past year, my fiance,
Hmm.
she got me tickets to a play, and
Okay.
it was an adaptation of Stephen King's Misery.
Oh wow.
And
Okay. Classic.
I loved it how the play was kind of just had that one setting. And that
Hmm.
setting was a character in itself. And that's how I wanted The Confession to
Yeah.
be. When I wrote the book, their house,
Yeah.
the Strohmeyer house, is a character within
Yeah. Of
itself.
course.
Because when I did research for the book, I went to the Lizzie Borden house.
Sure.
I stayed over there overnight in Massachusetts,
Okay.
and it felt like a character. The house
Sure.
itself, like spoke to me. So within that same spirit, I think when
Yeah.
I was watching the play, I thought, hey, the confession could really work in the same manner as well
Yeah.
as in a play. So if you don't write the screenplay, the play may never
I
happen.
I think
So you
that's
don't
yeah,
know until you actually try. So
that's
I'm gonna try to write a screenplay, shop it around, and see what happens.
I love it. That's I think that's more the question. Yeah, I think that's what I was kind of thinking, was um, sometimes if you're a screenwriter, you could play around with doing film scripts and I think that's the thing where, obviously you're very creative, and very talented, but you're very creative and you're writing the books, whether that's where that's the question was whether you had considered transposing that skills you have to another medium like plays or film scripts. So that's yeah, it's interesting here. I look, playing around with trying other.
Yeah, and it's funny because even though I write books, writing a screenplay kind of plays into my
Sure.
strength. My
Yeah.
strength in writing books is definitely dialogue.
Yeah.
Prose is something that I continually trying to work
Sure.
on. I want to become,
Mm.
poetic in my words. Like I
Yeah.
want my prose to be like Poe, less like, a contemporary writer, more like Poe. It's not there yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not Edgar Allan Poe. I, strive to be, but
Yeah.
I'm not him.
Sure.
But my strength is that definitely dialogue. So
Yeah.
screenplays or play, they're dialogue heavy,
Yeah.
so it
Cool.
definitely plays into my strength.
Yeah.
So I pause it a little bit because want to get loose ends out. So once that's over, I'll have a little bit
Yeah.
more time
Watch this space.
to finish it. But I'll be interested to see how reading it through the first time after I put it in the screenplay format. So
Sounds good.
it'll be cool.
I look forward to it. So, Chad, yeah, sort of coming to the end of our chat. But of course, I guess the people want to reach out and want to want to read your books. I guess look for Chad Miller on Amazon
Mhm.
and your website, Chad Miller.
It's a Yeah, it's www.chadmiller-author.com.
Great.
So it
So
has all links to my publications on it. If you sign up for the newsletter, you get an access to a whole library of short stories for free. And a lot of them are related to actually most of the short stories are related to all the books that have similar characters to it. And plus, you get a free ebook of short stories.
wow,
So you
no
get all
way.
these freebies if you sign up for my website and news and updates and everything like that. And you could always find me on Facebook. I'm on
Excellent.
Facebook every day, just Chad Miller dash author. I think I pop right up.
Fantastic. So yes, I urge anyone watching the video, check out Chad's books on Amazon. Go to his website, get the free ebook, science newsletter. That's how we widen the minds. That's how we learn new things by reading. We get inspired by stories, and so many authors out there. Find out new authors and try new ones. And yes, check out Chad's books. I urge you to do that. Great chatting to you, Jad.
Yes,
Really, thanks for your time. It's great to get in the show, and thanks for sharing all your insights about your writing and how you approach it and your plans.
of course, it was a lot of fun.